Well, hello, Tom Stanton. Tom Stanton is known as Mel of Mel's Charities, or Mel is known as Tom, and so forth. But Tom is a great citizen of Elzaki County, hails from Cleveland, Ohio, but has some time growing up in Green Bay and has some stories to share about the Union Hotel and some other great Packer connections and people up in the Green Bay area. Welcome, Tom. Welcome back, actually.
Well, thanks, Jim. Like I said before, little did I know my experiences in Green Bay so many years ago would be so unique and fun and life-changing, as a matter of fact. So the Union Hotel, for you guys that don't know, it's an iconic restaurant, and they actually have a hotel there too in DePere. It's been around since 1883. And the Boyd family has been intertwined with this since the beginning, and their family now runs it. And back in 1985, there was 8 kids. And I'd say 83, 84, I started hanging around with the twins, James and Patrick Boyd. And we hit it off. We started having a lot of good times around the area. So they invited me up to Door County in the summer of 85, right around, I think around August. And I got to meet their father and their mom, Jim and Pat Boyd. And after spending a few days up there, Mr. Boyd said, "Hey, I think you should maybe bartend over at the Union." And I already was working at Nicky's, another iconic place that we'll talk about down the road. So I came home. Once again, I told my parents, and they're like, "You don't realize what a cool place that is. You better jump at that." So I think it was September 1st of 1984, right around there, I started. And I was one of the first non-family members to ever have the opportunity and the experience to work there. It was white shirts, and you wore a tie, and you got to go there. It's just an iconic place. So what jumped out at me, though, and I've said this a few different times, outside of my father, there's probably been 3 or 4 individuals that I've looked back on that, after seeing how they related to people, really influenced me on my journey in my life. And one is Mr. Boyd. He didn't care who you were and who came in there. And I'll give you an example of it, and we'll tie it into the football thing. Early September, NFL football starts, and who comes walking in but John Madden and Pat Summerall. And for you younger individuals that think of Jim Nance and Tony Romo, back then there was only one national game. There weren't Thursday nights. There was Monday night, but there wasn't no Sunday night. There wasn't as many games on. And these 2 guys were it. And so they come walking in, and the first thing Mr. Boyd said to him was, "Have a seat at the bar. We don't take reservations." And here you got these guys who are probably the 2 most popular sports announcers in America, going to all these fancy places all over the country. They come into the Union Hotel, and they're sitting just like everybody else. And that was in the heyday of John Madden doing the Miller Lite commercials, so he's drinking a Miller Lite and he's got the big cigar. Pat Summerall liked to have fun back then, and they're just sitting there. But the thing that jumped out at me, and Mr. Boyd taught me this too, you don't bother them. No autographs, no pictures, no nothing. And then he pointed to a group of guys, I'll never forget this, sitting on the other side of the bar, and he says, "You treat John Madden and Pat Summerall just like these guys sitting over here. These guys help pay my bills. They're here all the time with their families. They're here. They're really good customers. These guys come in maybe once a year, once every 2 years. So you better don't give these guys any special treatment because you're going to tick off my friends." That stuck with me because I could see how Mr. Boyd was a sharp businessman, and he understood who his customers were. And then the other thing that I got to know, like I said, there are rooms above the Union, and back then they were more people lived there year round, and they would come down every night, and Raleigh and Carl and Dennis and John, and a lot of these guys had some struggles in life, and looking back on it, Mr. Boyd always made sure they had a place to stay, and he'd always look to make sure they had a job. Because obviously there was a lot of, at the Union, a lot of business leaders. I mean, it was just very well known for people that have been around a really long time in the Green Bay DePere area. they would go there. So obviously Mr. Boyd, knew them, and he would find employment for these individuals and change their life. And always sort of keep an eye out on them. And trust me, I mean, I was no saint back then either, but I mean, these guys like to have fun, and he just always took care of them. And it really personified Christmas time. And so obviously the union was closed on Christmas Day, and the Boyds would always have a party at their house Christmas night. I picture 8 kids, all the people that Mr. and Mrs. Boyd knew. They would invite everybody. The guys that lived upstairs, to their good customers, to the kids' friends. And you'd walk over there once again, and I mentioned this before, Jim, it sort of reminds me of what Mel's has become. It's every walk of life, enjoying each other's company and not caring who you are, where you live, what you drive, just having fun. And Mr. Boyd didn't realize at the time it was impacting lives. And it rings true big time with what we're trying to accomplish here at Mel's. So I was fortunate enough to be there from about September, and then in January I got a job down here. So I was only there a short period of time, but the friendships and the relationships have lasted forever. I mean, McKim Boyd now runs it with his sister Marion and his other sister Annie. They are dear, dear close friends, as are all the Boyd kids. And then I'll finish on this because it was something that stuck with me my entire life. So in 2005, in August of 2005, Mr. Boyd had retired. Pat unfortunately had left us way too early, and Mr. Boyd would come over on every Saturday night and sit at the bar and just tell old stories, whether it be about the Packers. Dad Brazier lived there for 40 years. That just tells you the connection, and we'll get more into that maybe the next time we talk. But he would go and tell stories every Saturday night. And in August of, I got the date right here, I think it was 2005, he was walking to go upstairs or up the steps to the Union, and he walked in between 2 cars, and he tragically got hit by a car and passed away right at the steps of the iconic Union Hotel while McKim was working. So I get this phone call, and obviously it rocked me a little bit, and I went up for a celebration of life. And I was telling you this earlier, I walk into the church, and there's John and Raleigh and Dennis and Carl, and then there's the bishop, and there's Bob Harlan, and there's Packer players. I mean, once again, a melting pot of people. Every walk of life. I've probably one of the top 2 or 3 funerals or wakes I've been at where there was that many people there. And so I was going through the line, and obviously I knew the kids really well, and I'm like, geez, you guys, you got to get through this line. We'll talk afterwards, or next time I'm in town. They said, no, you can't go anywhere. We want you to stick around and be close by our family and close friends. So after the service was over, I sat there and I watched this line of people of every walk of life go through and pay their respects to Mr. Boyd. And then we, after it was over, we go over to the Union. They lock all the doors. They turn all the light on behind the bar, and we had a good old-fashioned Irish wake. And I remember calling my mom, saying, "Hey, leave the front door open. I'm not going back to Cedarburg." I told my wife too. Said, this means more to me than not having any clothes to change for tomorrow. And so I stayed till about 2 in the morning. Came home. And it's a day and night that I will never forget. And I'm grateful that that the Boyds are still just really good friends of mine, and I've introduced them to a lot of friends of mine down in this area. And I have kept Mr. Boyd's mass cards from that day because he meant a lot to me.
Bring it a little closer.
So I'm saying that if you ever Google the Union Hotel, if you're up in DePere, drive by it, stop in, tell the Boyds, a crazy guy named Mel, and they'll take care of you. But God bless the Boyd family, and God bless Mr. Boyd.